Okay, so this is the Node LTS work group meeting for March 7th, 2016. Fortunately, I'm going to have a quick meeting today. We only have 2 items on the agenda. Before we get moving too far along, Miles, can you give us a quick update on where we're at with 4.4?
Yes, so 4.4, we caught our last RC 4 days ago, which was, for the most part, identical to the one that we cut a week ago. The only difference being the order of commits. The OpenSSL fix was just in a different order because we released 4.3.2, I think it was. It's ready to go. I think we were planning to release it tomorrow. It has passed all of the tests. There has been, for 18 days we've been doing different RCs, so we have not seen any major problems that have not been dealt with in close to 3 weeks now.
And this includes a number of December minors. Those, not seeing any issues whatsoever in those?
Not yet, no. So December minor ones that are in there are 2 new flags, a feature in HTTPS agent to catch errors and keep alive connections, better support for big endian systems, the ability to pass SSL options to create secure pair. I'm not, sure offhand if people have been explicitly testing all of these, but at the very least, the people who have been testing the RC have not noticed any weird regressions or any problems.
Right. Michael, have you, has your team had a chance to go through 4.4 in detail yet?
Well, I did a sniff test, so I basically installed it on one of our power machines. I made sure it started, and I installed and ran the native heat dump module. And in terms of building the full 4.4, we're a little bit behind, so we'll be starting that probably today or tomorrow.
Does anyone have any concerns with December minors that are going out in this?
I don't think so. They were mostly additive, right? So, or by definition, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of on the opinion that we shouldn't restrict LTS to necessarily just be patch levels. So. +1 for me.
Cool. Ben, any concern on your end?
No, not really. I'm fine with doing SEM for minors.
Okay, cool. So Miles, is there anything that you need from all of us other than just more eyes on testing?
Nope. I think that's about it. I think moving forward, it might be nice for RCs to have some sort of official channel that people can put comments, or it would be really great to have the signal that it's working. So right now we only get signal when it's broken. So it could be interesting to have some sort of way that different shops who are testing out the RC can fill out and say, hey, I tested this and it works. And I mean, in theory, that could be the GitHub issue, but I don't know if that's the most appropriate way to do it.
I think part of it is something I've been thinking about also is when we do an RC, when there are specific changes that are of concern, so adding a new December minor to an LTS, when we cut the RC, it might be also helpful to have some to call out the specific how to test this feature to see if it breaks, type of things. So not just notable changes, but notable changes, and here's how to test it.
Yeah, and should we put it in the weekly news that goes out?
I would say probably not.
Yeah, it's a bit noisy. One other conversation that had come up here recently was how we can just have a better infrastructure for doing announcements to the collaborators. I can't remember the repo where this came up in, but the idea was GitHub doesn't really give us anything very good for doing this, other than possibly creating a new repo that's like kind of an issues only repo. The other option would be to give each working group um, a channel on the Node.js.org website where we can post, essentially a work group blog where we could post information about these types of things. So.
Right, it's more than just collaborators, I guess. But yeah, I remember that discussion of maybe a new repo where people could basically watch it if they wanted to have, to get release announcements.
Yeah. This is actually on the agenda. It's LTS issue 78.
Right.
Having having some channel where we can announce it, where we can provide the additional information and context necessary for testing, and doing exactly what Matthew suggested about tracking. Okay, yes, this works. No, it doesn't.
Because it would be interesting, even if there's like right now. Do we have any idea who actually even tried out the release candidates?
Yeah.
I know that Bryce Merrill did because I talked to him personally, but that's kind of the exact thing that I'd like to have more vision on. Because we can have a release candidate out for 6 months, but if no one touches it, it doesn't really prove anything.
Yeah, that's right.
There should be download stats available for that somewhere.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, the download stats.
I'm not sure if those are public, but we could probably get either Rod or Johan to figure out how to pull those out. Is there any reason why we haven't done the subscribe to issue thing yet?
I
just try it first.
I don't think anybody's actually gone and created the repos. I can create like an announcements repo and subscribe all the collaborators to it.
But would it be more like an LTS announcements repo? Like,
do we need a separate repo? Can it just be an issue that people like sub to? That's like locked, so they don't necessarily need to. We can just like post on it when a new one comes out. Like I thought that was the idea. Was we would just have like a locked thread, and we would just post to it, and people could just push the subscribe button to get like emails or notifications from it.
So specifically just for RCs?
Yeah, just like a thread for announcements. That's it. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth a try. So let's just go ahead and create one. Do you wanna go ahead and create the issue?
Maybe Miles should do that since he's probably going to be the one that's actually going to be announcing on
it. Can you just reiterate what I'm potentially being volunteered for, please?
Posting to an issue when an RC comes out.
Yeah, I can handle that. You know what? This may be actually an interesting thing to bring up with the marketing committee. We have a bunch of enterprises that are part of the marketing committee. They have their own reasons for wanting to make sure their stuff isn't breaking. Perhaps there's something the marketing committee could be doing to help us reach out to all these different enterprises and like have some sort of channel. Like find out, how would they like to find out about it? How would they like to let us know that things are working?
Yeah, we should probably contact them more directly. I think Michael was saying that like that side of things was already like there's already almost too many announcements, so I'm not sure how much reasonable feedback we'll get from that.
Fair.
But it is, we want some way where people know that they exist. And I guess we would want them to, if they did find issues, actually open regular issues, right, on those RCs.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see how that works.
But I think if we just create this issue, how does anybody know it exists?
So the idea is like we can actually get maybe like marketing or someone to tweet just about like that issue to like
Yeah.
subscribe to stuff rather than trying to tweet for every RC.
Yeah, no, that I agree. So I think that would be a good idea. Create the issue, then put in for the next week's news that this issue's been created to do blah blah blah, and we can in the top of the issue say this is going to be an ongoing thread to announce new release candidates. If you do find issues, please report them in this particular way.
Yeah. Yeah, we can give that a shot, and then we can kind of revisit and tweak it again if we're not getting the kind of response that we need.
So I guess Miles, do you want to go ahead and do that? I'm happy if you want. I'm willing to volunteer, but if you're happy to do it, go ahead. That's kind of what I'm saying.
How about we just take it offline and collaborate on it?
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, so I think that takes care of issue 78. The other one is issue 5570 in the main repo. It's dealing with the NPM update to 2x and 0.10. We had added, or NPM had previously added the deprecation warning. I think in the next version of 0.10 it was supposed to be updated to 2x. But we've had a couple of 0.10 updates since that warning is still there. From what I understand, I think this actually just came in here recently. Looks like Forrest is going to go ahead and get the PRs put together to get that updated. Jeremiah, do you have any more information on that?
Okay, so it is going to go ahead in the next 10 release. We'll have those be updated.
So what I suggested to go ahead with was for us to make the PRs, then we can do like an RC or two without even like officially merging those PRs into the branches. We can do an RC off of like some other branch. Doesn't matter. See if like things don't terribly break for people, especially using 0.10 because it used like such an old version. That's mostly what we care about, I think. I guess, and then do releases off of them probably, because we decided already like months ago that we should do that, and there's been a message in there for months.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable. It sounds prudent to have a release candidate period of some time. So.
And objectively, like NPM 2 fixes more than it breaks.
Yeah, there were some recent security type fixes as well. Not that they were particularly severe, but.
It's still definitely worth getting it done.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I mean, it sounds like a plan. Jeremiah, I assume, are you going to be watching that?
Yeah,
process?
I can watch that.
Okay. Other than that, I don't think we really have anything else on the agenda to discuss. One thing I have been thinking about, I know, Jeremiah, your onboarding instructions, kind of where we talk about this, having this LTS supplement. One thing I really want to see if we can do is encourage collaborators to be a little more proactive about using the LTS watch labels and.
Right. So there's like an entire label section in there. So basically, the stuff that I have, which I still need to fix up more this week, probably merge this week though. There's actually like two documents. There's like one which can basically be given as almost like a presentation, and there's a second which is just like a bunch of additional info that doesn't really flow very well, but like lists like a bunch of stuff. And one of them is labels. Like one of them is who to CC for different things. So we can probably fit it in there, I think.
Okay. What would be the process? I mean, do you want me to just open a new PR after you land this one, or I can do a PR against your PR branch, or
What are you looking to do?
just add some detail about the LTS process and how to use
If
those.
you have like a short thing you can write up about it, just post it in the thread, and I'll see if I can incorporate it.
Okay.
Or if it like doesn't get in time, we can just do a PR afterwards.
Okay. Yeah, the other part of it, not, aside from just doing the labels, is for the more complicated PRs. It would be ideal if people did their own backports, especially as we get further, as the delta between master and 4 gets larger, and we have commits that depend on other commits. It's not always obvious which ones should be backported and which ones should not. So that either the person opening the PR or the person landing the PR would ideally be a little more proactive about putting that information in, or doing a backport PR themselves.
You bring up an interesting point there, where the idea of like a commit depending on another commit because previous commit changed something. Like, I'm wondering if is there nothing like in Git that you can like use to tell you that like the last time this would have a conflict is in some other thing without actually like going through and checking the conflict? If you understand what I mean. I'm not sure how to explain it.
Yeah, it's kind of walking back the blame. I'm sure we could probably build a tool that does it, but I'm
Because
not aware of
the thing is like even people that like PR something might not
be aware. Yeah.
actually more likely than not aren't aware.
I'll investigate to see what we can do. What we can do there. There may be some way where we can walk back the blame, and see what depends on what. But right now it's fairly non-trivial.
Yeah.
The ones for the regressions, like all these path regressions, those are easy. It's like, okay, path got broken. When did it get broken? So those have been pretty straightforward. But there's other ones that are a bit more subtle, and things that look like rather innocuous docs changes might actually be based on some of our major, right, that landed previously. So it's really not obvious because some of the files they may actually touch different files. So even looking at the blame may not be adequate. Yeah, I mean it's just something to think about, how we could possibly make this easier.
Yeah, I don't really know how to do like the docs thing. Like that's I think like some way and to some degree like impossible via tooling unless you like have more metadata being like, well, this commit like
Yeah.
is associated with like X other commit, which just gets a bit too much.
Yeah.
I guess, what proportion do we think are being backported? Like, is it 80% or 10%?
For test and docs, it's almost all of them.
It's kind of like a bit of a curve.
Yeah.
At first it's probably almost 100%.
Right.
It kind of drops off.
It's just kind of like at that 100%, then it would be easier to identify things that have, if you could look at what hasn't been backported, then you might be able to tell if what you're doing affects that, right?
Well, see, in most of the Semver minors and Semver majors that require changes to docs, I mean, ideally the doc changes are in that PR, so we know not to take those.
Yeah.
And usually they are.
Usually they are. So that's generally not a problem. The ones that tend to be a bit more difficult are the test changes, especially with things like fixing a flaky test.
Yeah.
Is the commit that fixed the flaky test, did that come in after or before? Is it part of a Semver major or Semver minor or what? Right? And when should those get pulled back?
And that's where I know we had a few problems where there was some stuff tweaked in the test framework.
Yeah.
But then later tests depended on that, and those tweaks didn't pull back. So.
Right. up to this point, it hasn't been too painful. I think I'm trying to look forward, 6 months from now, or even a year from now when we're still supporting 4, but we're already up on 7, right?
Well,
But 4 won't be taking nearly as many changes then, I think.
case study 0.12, right? Like,
Yeah. We're still on the cup for supporting 4 actively through April 2017. So we're going to be up on 8, and we're still actively taking backports for 4.
you gotta think like what we mean by necessarily actively, though. I think we always expected there to be a curve, and like you look at 0.12, which is quote unquote active LTS, but
Yeah.
it only gets really what it needs at some certain point, which is kind of subjective to the people who maintain it, who eventually are going to be like, well, this is just too much work.
Yeah, I think it's also subject to the poll, right? Like, if it's an active LTS, I think the statement is if people argue for stuff in it should be easier than when it's in the later phase, but
Yeah.
it's going to be based on what people push in as opposed to necessarily getting everything.
So our process right now is to proactively pull things in, right?
Yeah.
Whatever lands, then every week or so we push it out. At what point do we switch to a model where we're only going to do a release if somebody's asking for something, or if there's a critical update like a security?
I guess it's that we made it 18 months for the first part and 12 months for the second, right?
Right.
It might have made more sense to flip those around.
Yeah, I think the actual point which that will happen is once we maintain the next LTS. Like, I think that's where the cutoff point for that will actually end up in reality, even if, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I guess at this point nobody's complaining about 12, are they?
No.
Right. So I'd use that at least as one data point. Like if there were lots of things people were asking for, but that weren't going in, that might drive more stuff to go in. But if it's not been an issue.
Okay.
I wouldn't change anything now, but maybe we find like if the same thing happens on the next release, if we flip those two around to 12 and 18, like flip them backwards ways, that might align with what ends up happening.
Yeah, like I think it will actually be fairly easy to maintain patches for critical bugs over a long period of time, but to maintain like volume of like regular fixes, probably very difficult.
Yeah. Yep. And I think the granularity of there's just been so many doc and test fixes at a very low granularity. It gets kind of difficult to keep up. I don't know if we're going to.
Do we need to take the docs changes into LTS?
We've taken those because they're low risk.
Yeah.
The test ones,
Yeah,
like
but it's still work, right? So, I mean, the test changes are like in some degree somewhat important because if you try to run the tests on, well, they might be more accurate, I guess, is like the idea.
well, it's also for like me where we constantly run those tests. If there's a flaky test, that hurts you because you got to go and look at it too often. I guess it's the other thing too is there's the automatic kind of gets pulled back. Then there's the, well, if somebody came along and said, well, hey, this is hurting me. Here's a pull request to fix it. You know, you take it. And then there's the, well, we're really in the phase where we don't want to change anything because we don't want anything else, right?
I think if we're an active LTS, like if someone PRs something to fix something, like take it unless it's breaking, basically. There's not much reason not to.
Right.
If you're once we're in maintenance, like depends on what it is.
Right, and that's where the curve, you know, at the beginning, well, we could even, you know, refine it to until the next release comes out, we're pretty much going to actively stream things backwards. But once we hit that first 12 months and we've got another release to do that on, then it sort of goes into the, well, yeah, people come up with PRs, we'll take them. And then when it goes into the maintenance phase, it's like, well, we're going to take a closer look at things because
maintenance is please migrate off of this. Thank you.
Right. It's like it's still there, but you know, start to think about migrating. So unless it's really important, let's not change things. I don't know, James, Miles, what do you think after, like, if we hit that second, you know, when we hit October and we have 6 being supported, it'd be difficult to take on that and 12, probably, or and 4, right?
Well, 0.10 and 0.12 by that time should be largely just done. I mean, those fall off LTS entirely in December. We might, what I would say is probably for the remainder of the year, we should probably just be looking at security updates only for those.
Mm-hmm.
So that becomes a lot easier. So if we're only focusing on 4 and 12 or 4 and 6, I think it becomes a lot. It becomes less complicated.
Right.
The challenge there, you know, we have. Let's see, 5. We're pretty sure 5 is going to drop off around October. Some people may still want to push it, so we're going to have 6, 7, or 4, 6, 7, and then 8. Yeah, I think that makes sense. We basically just switch to instead of being proactive, we become reactive with 4 after 6 comes out in LTS.
Right, now 7, we shouldn't have 7 and 8 at the same time, right?
No.
There's like a 1 month overlap for, oh, this bug is really bad and it still exists in 7. Let's update it so that people can migrate.
Okay.
But that's not on LTS to do. I think that's on the regular release team to do, so I wouldn't worry about it too much.
Yeah. So really, yeah, from the LTS perspective, it'll be 4, 6, and I guess 12 for security things, 10. But
even by October, I mean, if people are not off of 0.10 and 0.12 by October, then they've got a problem.
OpenSSL support is ending.
Yeah.
Do you want to get hacked or not?
I think we should. I think we should actually push on that a little bit more because there are still a ton of people on 0.10.
Yeah, and that's not something that we can do anything about anymore.
Right.
I guess it's just around messaging, perhaps. Like, you know, at some interval beforehand, it should be, oh, and reminder, you've only got 4 months left until this ends. And 2 months before, oh, you still only got 2 months. I think that's about the only other thing we can do, right, is to keep telling people, reminding them.
You should have a, when they go to download that version off the website, have some kind of countdown time clock on there. Only supported, or support expires.
So there is no page for downloading 0.12 or 0.10 versions off the website. You go directly to the file link thing, list thing. There's not actually even a page for it.
Good. Okay.
We could probably make pages for it. I've been meaning to make pages for individual versions, or at least have it be able to serve a page for an individual version because I need that for something myself. But
I was even considering the possibility of adding a warning in 0.10 and 0.12 when it starts.
we could, it would be possible. We could totally like release a version at the end of the life cycle that does that.
Yeah.
Be like, yeah, this isn't supported anymore.
Maybe we just need to, rather than having to actually release a version, could we actually put in a countdown timer into Node itself? That at some point of time before,
That seems
before,
unreliable to me, but
yeah, it might be. But like you could basically write the code that says 4 months or some number of time after the date that this was released, start putting out this message that says, output is going to end.
I don't know. It's something to think about. Okay. Okay. Do we have anything else?
not here.
Yeah, we can kind of think about it and see, if there's any concrete stuff we can kind of brainstorm in the GitHub repo on it. But let's go ahead and wrap up. Save everyone another 20 minutes. And
Sounds good. Talk to you guys later.
all right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.